Brandon Lewis here with the Tennessee Conservative News. I'm so glad to have you here with me. If you would, if you're watching this for the first time, or if you're a regular supporter and subscriber of the Tennessee Conservative News, I would love it if you would just let me know where you're from in the comments section. For me, it would be Brandon Lewis from the Belvoir community in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Maybe for you, it is Spring City. It could be Memphis, Germantown. You might be calling us from White County. I don't know where you're from, but welcome to the Tennessee Conservative News Break. Put your comments in the comment section where you're from, what you think of these stories. If you've got interesting links to articles that you think that we need to know or cover, especially if it's state and local news, put those in the comments section as well. We love to find stories. If you think there's a hot story, if you think you got a news lead and you want to tell us about it, contact us through private messenger. We'll always protect your identity. That's how we've been able to break a lot of these stories, like the Migrant Detention Center, the Chattanooga Chamber of Commerce's woke racist policies that they've been pushing, and a lot of cultural Marxism that's going on in the classroom and other parts of Tennessee, even in the government. So if you hear about that stuff, let us know. I'm going to bring you the news stories. Let's get right to them. Things that we think Tennessee conservatives would care about. First story, Tennessee kids, if I can say the word Tennessee kids can now transfer school districts easier with the new law. The Tennessee Senate has passed a bill that would give families more ease when transferring their children to schools outside of their school district. If the bill passes into law, all local educational agencies in the state will have to adopt policies that make intra-district transfer a smoother process. The bill here currently says, quote, requires each LEA to have an open enrollment period in which a parent or guardian of a student may ask to seek the transfer of the children to a school in the LEA that the student is not zoned for. The bill adds transparency to the system by stating that open enrollment periods should be a period of a 30-day window and a 14-day notification so that parents will have plenty of time to know what's going on. The bill allows for local educational agencies to reserve some spots each year in order to accommodate enrollment for reallocating students. If there are more applicants than spaces available, they will have a lottery in order to determine which students will be allowed to transfer. It's kind of a sad state of affairs in government education in Tennessee, where number one, you have to transfer districts. If you have to transfer districts, we really just need school choice. If the districts are that bad, the second thing is if you have to have school lotteries to see if your kids can get into a good school, that's a sad state of affairs. When you have to have a lottery, when you have to gamble, basically, if you'd like to gamble and if you win the prize, maybe your kid can learn to read. But you're gonna have to gamble to do it. Let's hope that you're lucky. That's a sad state of affairs. Back to the story. However, LEAs will not be able to admit new transfers until acting upon applications that come from students who have parents or guardians working for the district. It's kind of interesting. The bill also prohibits LEAs from denying a student who is zoned to attend or was enrolled in a school during the previous school year enrollment and attendance in the school. So, for me, any type of school choice, even if it's half measures, even if it's not that great, is better than no school choice at all. And I think, if anything, the pandemic has taught us that our government schools are failing our children, and we're spending 11 grand per kid every year. We need to make sure that these kids are taken care of. Next story: medical marijuana moves forward in Tennessee after compromise. State legislators have come to an agreement on a medical cannabis decriminalization bill after a wide-ranging bill just barely failed to pass. The updated bill made it through 6 special House committees and a Senate committee on Tuesday, with only a few days left in this year's legislative session. The bill squeaked through the Senate with a vote of 20 to 12, which is, pretty close vote for a Republican supermajority. While some of those who voted against the bill did so with strong opposition to any kind of legalization of marijuana, others voted against it because they felt the legislation was not extensive enough. And then they all rolled a joint and went out and smoked it behind the House chambers. I'm just joking. That didn't happen. I'm just making that up. Back to the story. To purchase THC containing products, patients would be required to have a letter from a physician called Dr. Feelgood. Uh, that's not true either. A letter from a physician that would have to be renewed every 6 months. The letter must detail previous attempts to use more conventional treatment options such as LSD or Quaaludes. That is not in the story either. I don't know why I'm making so many jokes. I just think this is kind of funny. Conventional treatment options before using cannabis oil. And I don't know if that's 10W40 or what that is. The legislation makes allowances for Alzheimer's disease, as well it should, ALS, end-stage cancer, inflammatory bowel disease such as Crohn's disease. I had a very good friend pass away from that. That's no joke. And ulcerative colitis, epilepsy or seizures, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, HIV/AIDS, and sickle cell disease. Hey, listen, the way I look at it, when it comes to medical treatment stuff, we got stuff out there that has side effects a mile long that people can prescribe without any type of oversight. That the side effects are almost worse than the help that it gives you. So if somebody wants to do this and if it helps them in some way, more power to them. People with these diseases would still have to go elsewhere to purchase cannabis oil because of the sale of marijuana is not currently legal in Tennessee. The new legislation would simply make it legal for individuals to have the products in their possession in the state. So maybe you have to drive to go get some. You probably have to drive a long way. National story. Battle lines drawn over taxpayer funding of critical race theory. A grassroots group of conservatives and Republican state leaders is pushing back after the Biden administration tied federal education funding to adopting controversial critical race theory teaching in kids and school curriculum. This is kind of funny. You see a lot of these organizations wanting to adopt this, especially like recently covered this Chattanooga Chamber story, and I'm sure it's happening in other Chamber of Commerces. I had a friend of mine recently resign from a United Way board that was pushing this garbage. And it's so controversial that there's political conflict over it. Why apolitical nonprofit organizations would be trying to indoctrinate people with this claptrap, which is basically just racism towards Europeans, European Americans. Democrats love to trot out a new form of racism every once in a while. They love slavery. Then they love Reconstruction that wasn't really correct, and they love the Ku Klux Klan, and they love Jim Crow, and then they kind of were losing, so they did a little bit and put all these social programs in place that broke apart the African American family, and now the new form of racism they're pushing is critical race theory because they love racism, they got to have it, and so they figured the easy target used to be black people for racism, and now the easy target's European Americans for racism, so they're right on board. Back to the story. Critics of critical race theory argue it overemphasizes the role of racism in American history and politics, and is motivated by revisionist history. And Republican lawmakers sent Republican lawmakers sent a letter to the Biden administration last week arguing taxpayer funds should not be used for propaganda and to promulgate the theory, but no response has been reported so far. I think you may not ever get one. Grassroots swell of Americans are pushing back against this ideology. We're seeing this right here in Tennessee right now, and more power to them. And this is a quote here. These types of trainings, which they're not trainings, it's just propaganda garbage, not only run counter to the fundamental beliefs which our nation has stood for since its inception, but they also engineer division, resentment within the federal workforce. Ron DeSantis said, critical race theory is basically teaching people to hate our country, hate each other. It's divisive, and it's basically an identity politics version of Marxism. Ron is correct. Ron's been hitting some home runs. I'd love to see Ron run for president. I think he'd make a good one. Next story. Bill limiting unemployment compensation passes Tennessee House. We need it. We need something because the labor kerfuffle that has been caused by these people. Always the government causes a problem. It's this very common pattern, right? Government causes a problem, such as the pandemic. That's why we have 24.4% less small businesses now than we had. I'm going to get into this in a second, but first, you need to click that button, the support button. For those of you that like watching this enough to get this far, click that support button, send us some money. It is expensive to cover these stories, to pay our reporters, the overhead, the subscriber acquisition. Every time you give $1, I get to find another conservative just like you to put conservative news in front of instead of this liberal crap that comes out of most of our broadsheets across Tennessee. And when you give any amount, you get 2 proud Tennessee conservative bumper stickers right here. We'll send them right to your door. Ask everybody who's given. If you've given and you've got one of these bumper stickers, Put in the comment section, yep, they mail it. If you get $50 or more and you've done this, leave it in the comment section. We send you this Proud Tennessee Conservative tumbler, and if you put in Colt 45, it comes out Terrapin Hops Executioner. It really makes your beer have a better flavor, or whatever else you want to drink. If you're not a beer drinker, you can put medical grade cannabis in here, and it comes out. It's some stuff that if you smoke, you may not wake up until next week. It's very magical, has magical properties. We also send you this cool directory, right? This cool directory of all state senators and state reps, along with the governor's line. So if they're trying to pass something, do something, and you want to say, that a boy, good job, you can do that. If you want to say, hey, I don't think the district wants that, you can tell them that too. Back to the story. The Tennessee House passed legislation Tuesday that would limit unemployment compensation from the state to 12 weeks while increasing the weekly pay rate for the first time since 2001. Representative Zachary said, we are not in Washington. We cannot print money. We have to ensure the solvency of this unemployment program. It's supposed to be a bridge to the next step. The House version of the bill would boost unemployment benefits by $25 for all claimants, while the Senate amendment would raise benefits by at least $25 for all, but $50 for those who made $26,000 per year before coming on unemployment. Senator John Lungberg said, right now, Tennessee has the second lowest amount that we pay. At the same time, we have the longest period that someone can remain on unemployment, 26 weeks, that's 6 months. Almost every study says that someone who is unemployed for 6 months is not going to re-enter the job market. It's too long. I agree. The state's unemployment rate rises above if the state unemployment rate rises above 5.5%, unemployment benefits would be extended 1 week for every 0.05% it raises, but it's capped at 20 weeks. Those are your conservative news stories for Tennesseans who care. Now, listen, you've heard about this social media censorship stuff, right? Have you heard about this? It's kind of a thing. It's going around. If you don't want us to be censored, the best way that I can make sure that we stay in touch with you is to go and get our e-newsletter. And you go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com, click that subscribe button, and we'll send you an e-newsletter at lunch every day. And we'll cover the stories that I just covered, but we'll cover them in more detail. I'm dying here. I should have put some water in this puppy. We'll cover them in more detail, and must be seasonal allergies. And we will also cover a lot of other stories that aren't covered here. So I hope that you will be here for the next Tennessee Conservative News Break. Share our stories, our memes with all of your conservative friends. If you're in an organization of conservatives, drop it in the Facebook group, send it by email. We need all the conservatives we can get on our list so that we can let you know when things are happening that you need to take action on. Brandon Lewis with Tennessee Conservative News. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care, guys.